Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So glad I could be with you. So glad you could be with me. Today I got a little quick discussion to share with you. First off, the general disclaimer is this. There's no way I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about gardening in this video. Quite frankly, I've been gardening for, better part of 40 plus years. I'll be in my early 50s this year, 52, and I've been gardening, over 40 years, probably since I was 7, 8 years old and first could pay attention to what was going on in the garden with my parents. And I've grown food in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different states I've lived in that I've grown. I've lived in I think it's 12 states. I've 7 states that I've actually grown food in, and multiple different climates. And so here's the thing: I am still learning different things about growing food and how to do that. So I've got a new new Patreon subscriber who sent me a question. And unfortunately, because my old channel was taken down, the answers to that question have been removed. I love the censorship, but anyway, I want to answer this question, and I want to do it in a way I've done before. But like I guess many people are new, haven't had a chance to maybe see this perspective, I understand that not everybody's going to get the same information. If it wasn't for my channel being taken down, I probably would say, go search my videos or go search YouTube. But there's a difference here in some learning that I've gotten over the years that I think is far better than just teaching you one specific task. There are 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 videos out there on YouTube that will teach you a recipe on how to do it this way or that way. And a long time ago, I was taught a lesson that has been more valuable to me than just what is the exact way to plant this particular thing at this moment. So what I want to share with you is some general understandings that if you can wrap your head around some concepts and understand the learning process that you will need to do, and be willing to attempt many different things, because things are going to work different for you where you're at than they will for me. Your soil types are different, your climate's different, there's a whole lot of different situations. The process, though, is to learn what does what. And I've said this before in other videos. Like I said, chances of everybody seeing everything is not possible, so I'm going to say it again. Learn what things do, and then you don't have to learn the exact recipes. Yes, like I spoke about my beer brewing, you can have a specific recipe and you can get a certain flavor of beer, or with a cherry pie, you can have that recipe and get a specific pie. But there are good recipes and there are better recipes. There are a lot of different ways to plant potatoes. And that's, Doug, this video is for you, because you asked about spacing and stuff. But I'd rather have you learn concepts, have you learn understandings of how things work. Because if you can get that, you can sort your way through it fairly easy without having to encumber your brain with too many data points. And that's part of the problem that we've had with our education system is, our education system is taught you to memorize data points and not to truly understand what's going on and how to work with it. So when I was doing my beer making videos, and I've done other planting videos, I've always tried to incorporate the recipe, and that's the reason why I did this potato video that I did a few days back, the way I did it. So first off, there is no exact perfect way to do anything, anytime, anyway. There are general ways that you do things that tend to work better. And that's what I want to share with you here, is understanding some simple basics about what ingredients that you need to pay attention to as to how they're affecting what you're trying to accomplish. So let's start with the basics, because that's what you asked, Doug. You asked, well, what's your spacing and your depth for your potatoes? Because you have a video for that. And no, I don't have a video for that, or I did, but we're beyond that, because there's so many different ways that you can grow potatoes. But what I will say is this. This is the understanding, the concept that you want to get when it comes to planting anything. And that is this. There's two things that you need to keep in mind. Two primary things that you need to keep in mind when you want to plant something to get the most abundance out of it. First is when you're planting, like you said, seed spacing and such, and planting depth. That's generally determined by the size of the seed as far as spacing and depth, like a potato. Because you're talking about something that's this big, or maybe even a whole potato, or even a smaller one, your planting depth is going to be so that it's covered by a certain amount of soil. As you go down in size or up in size, your planting row depth and your planting spacing is going to change based on the size of the seed, which means little tiny seeds, like itty bitty seeds that are like lettuce seeds, arugula seeds, those kinds of things. You don't want to plant 3 or 4 inches deep. So the size of the seed is going to determine the depth that you're going to plant it. So green beans, I'll row out a hoe and I'll put the green bean seed in about inch and a half down into the dirt, so it has a little bit further deeper displacement. My radish seeds, tiny little radish seeds, I'll merely sprinkle them on top of the dirt. And lettuce seeds and spinach seeds, I'll hoe out a row so that maybe that spinach seed is covered by a 1/2 inch of dirt when I rake the dirt back over it, just enough to keep it from washing away and such. So your seed size, and a potato is a potato seed, considered a potato seed, is going to get planted based on the size of it. And considering potatoes are underground tubers, you're probably going to kill them up or cover them, or if you're working out of a barrel planting method, you may be adding more and more dirt on top of it, depending on your technique. But you're not going to take little tiny seeds and plant them too deep, because that seed will have to deal with pushing through too much dirt to get out to grow. So the first concept is, for planting, in your spacing and depth, your depth will be determined primarily by the size of your seed on most situations, unless you're rooting something. And even when you're rooting something, you got to take into account to how much depth you need to cover the rooted plant. You've seen me with my goji berries and my elderberry trimmings that I've rooted, and when I go to plant them, I'm going to plant them to make sure that they get deep enough for those roots to work. Same concept. The other half of that is thinking out in the future, and that is, how big is your plant going to get? Because you want to provide enough plant spacing for what will be a mature plant. Because if you have too many too close together, you could have some issues with that, because then they will all be struggling and fighting for the same resources, and they won't have the elbow room that they need to really expand. If you got too many too far apart, then too far apart, you may not have the yield that you need to get as much, or having plant growth, or sufficient plant growth to provide cover for the soil. If you're using a cultivated soil, your ground might dry out a little quicker than you want because the sun gets down to it. There's a lot of little factors that you want to take take into account. But there's two main things that you want to focus on when planting. When you're putting your seed in or putting your plant in or whatever it is, you want to make sure that it's proportionate to what you're dealing with. Most tiny little seeds don't like to get very deep. The bigger the seed, corn, if you're planting a row of corn, you want them down in about an inch or so, just enough to cover them so that the birds don't eat them and they can get a good root into the ground. Potatoes are going to be different. Carrot seeds, even though that carrot's going to go pretty deep in the soil, that's your soil structure, that seed wants to be laying on top of the ground. So you just sprinkle those on a nicely groomed piece of soil. So those are the two factors, the recipes that you can apply to most everything that you put in the ground. Now let's talk about some other things, because there are a lot of factors in growing things that you're going to want to keep in mind when you're doing it. One is your climate. You're going to have to learn your seasons. You're going to have to learn when is a good time to plant, when is not a good time to plant. And since I've grown in several different climates, I've come to learn, especially here in this last climate, that there are some things I can't do in the summer that I was doing up in Montana right in the middle of the summer, because the later spring there, the later summer, the shorter summer up there where you have a longer summer here, there was not as many, hardly, almost no bugs up there versus the bugs here because it gets so much colder up there. So there are all kinds of things that you're going to have to take into account when it comes to planting, as not just how deep or how far apart, but the timing of this. And I'm going to tell you right now, for all my years, I've developed on a lot of things gut feelings. Like this year, we had that crazy snow just a few weeks ago. It was like almost Arctic conditions, and within just a few days afterwards, as that snow was melting, we were jumping back up into the 70s. And I started scanning through the extended forecast and looking into the middle of March, where we're at now. Today's the 17th, I think. And all I could see were warm temperatures. As a matter of fact, we may have a frosty night coming up in about a few days after this next cold front comes through, in which case I may need to bring in a lot of my starts that I've got outside. But everything that I've planted outside, I've only planted things that I know can handle a light frost. And there are things that are popping up out there. Some of the spinach has actually popped up out there. Some of the potatoes are, that I put in are really starting to look like they're wanting to punch through the soil, because they were all really wanting to go. Potatoes can handle a topping on the frost. So you have to know your seasons, what your plants can handle as far as temperatures, what the sunlight it wants, what it doesn't want, that kind of thing. Most of your garden plants are going to want full sun. Most of your vegetable producing, fast growing plants are going to want full sun. However, there are some that are very good to do in the shade. You'll have to sort through which ones do which. This is a huge learning process. So you're going to come to what I've gotten over the years is a gut feeling, well, this kind of worked, but it didn't work at this time. Or it worked here at this time, and it didn't work this way. Trial and error is the best way to do it. Too many people that I've seen grow gardens will get out there, they'll get out there in the spring and they'll plant, and like I did last year, and all of a sudden all those insects come busting out of the ground, and all of a sudden you're attacked by the insects, and your plants get devoured, and you're wondering, what the hell do I do to grow some food? And I've seen too many people give up because they only think that there's one time to plant. Well, down here in the south, we got a very long growing season, which means, as I did last year, we had a second wave or a fall crop. I've got a good friend of mine that's down on the Gulf Coast, and he doesn't get near as cold as we do here. So he has winter gardens that he puts in because he can't grow certain things in the summertime at all. His brassicas, if he tries to plant broccoli or cabbage or anything like that in the summertime, they'll get eaten up by bugs so fast that he will have no production. So these are things that you're going to have to learn, is the cycles, the weather patterns, what is conducive, what is not. And then, as far as plants, you're going to get a feel for it. The final aspect of this basics that you want to get your head wrapped around is the soil types and conditions, having a good, decent soil, because you can try, or you can plant in all different kinds of conditions, all different times during the seasons. We can try a early crop of beans, a late crop, mid crop of beans, and a late crop. You can have 4 or 5 plantings of beans throughout a growing season down here in the middle of the growing season. You have to do a whole lot of different cycles. But if you don't have the right soil conditions for beans, you may not get any harvest whatsoever. So soil conditions is very critical too. Certain plants like certain types of soils. Some like more acidic, some like more basic conditions, different acid and bases. There's different, or alkaline, depending upon how you want to call it. There are different soil types that you're going to need to come up with, and that's something that you've seen me amending around here. Most of the time, a good, rich, dark, organic loam will grow just about everything, but strawberries, they like a more acidic ground. Corn doesn't like very acidic ground. It's a different kind of situation. So you got to learn these different conditions for different plants, and it's a whole lot of trial and error, a tremendous amount of trial and error, and that's unfortunately a huge portion of the knowledge that we have lost throughout the years when we went away from being a growing society of people who all had backyard gardens and all canned their foods, and this was common knowledge. The other aspect of this is knowing that we have a tremendous amount of varieties of each kind of vegetable that have basically been taken off of their shelves. Back in before World War II, people that I know who were alive back then, before grocery stores really came into existence, because they're like the first real grocery stores weren't around until like the late 40s, right after World War II. Walmart being a big contributor to that. Most of the time we had markets, or farmers markets, which we're going back to. And in those farmers markets, way back when, we used to have 30, 40, 60, 80 varieties of tomatoes that were available for your selection. Now you go to your local Wally World and you've got aroma and a big slicing tomato and maybe a cherry. You got 4 or 5 tomatoes, maybe. Not a huge selection. Same thing goes with your squash plants, your peppers and stuff like that. So what I want to encourage you is to understand that you might have 4 or 5 different peppers, and one pepper does really well and the others won't, or vice versa. You're going to have to sort your way through it. And that was the joy of us all producing at one point in time, is that we all found out what we could do well, what we could grow well. And in doing such, that's what we had taken our abundance to a market and then have barter, trade, sharing. Our commercial system stole that from us, stole away the variety and the flavors and the taste, because everything's been watered down and overgrown and just made big so that it looks like it has value, but it doesn't necessarily have value because it wasn't grown in a highly nutrient-dense, mineralized soil. So let's move on to that. Our bodies are designed to process food that's live food, almost entirely live food. Whenever we process it, we tend to destroy the nutrients in it. In the last 60 years, the commercial side of things has tried to make it so that they're selling every part of that. So when our food stopped becoming nutrient dense because we over-farmed our topsoils across the country and across the world, well, the pharmaceuticals farm a, you should understand the etymology in that, they decided, okay, well, we'll give you the nutrients in this cute little tablet or pill or gel cap or whatever, and you can buy that from us. We'll provide that for you, right? Well, your bodies weren't meant to take that in, and most of the um, minerals and vitamins that we have been taking in pill form have only done one thing for us, and that's to create very expensive pee. Basically, when you take these things, your body isn't capable of absorbing them, so it gets flushed right through your system because they're not in the proper form. The proper form for you and I to get our nutrition is through the food that we eat. So you want to have a highly mineralized soil. That's why you see in certain regions of the world where you have a high volcanic ash deposit, where you got a high mineralization, that's where you get some of the best flavors of food, the best growing of food and such. So in order to do that for your ground and to give your plants everything it needs, its building blocks, which create the building blocks for your nutrition, you want to add those minerals into your soil, where however you're growing, whether you're in the ground or in raised beds or in pots and tubs and stuff, depending upon how you're growing, you want to make sure that soil is conducive for your plants to grow and for you to get the food from, because that's the end goal of it, is to produce yourself some food and to be able to produce enough of it. So let me wrap this whole conversation up with that last aspect. One of the biggest failings I'm seeing in all the other prepper, homesteader type videos that give you a specific recipe. You want to plant potatoes, plant them this way. You dig them a row here, you plant them a foot apart, put them 3 inches down, then hill them up. And that's too simple. You're not understanding all the other ingredients that go into good production of that plant. That's why you've seen, for some of you have seen, my production yields increase over the last 2 years of me working this soil and getting it up into condition. It's not something that happens right away. So the reason I did that video was because there is a concept here that a lot of people have failed to share with everyone and get, and that is understanding your production needs, the quantities. And that's not something that's talked about very frequently in a lot of gardening videos. Oh, this is how I garden over here. That's great. But unfortunately, I've seen too many of my subscribers that I've been in conversation with show me what they're gardening, and I want to encourage them to continue expanding that, but they don't have the picture as far as the volume is concerned. I say do what you can, so this is not a knock on those people who are not doing the volume they can, but they'll get a start and they'll do a patio garden, and they'll have a couple tomato plants and a couple pepper plants, and they feel good about it, but in the end it is not survivable and it's not sustainable. So when I do my videos in showing you the volumes that I am creating, like I did with that potato video, the whole idea was to wrap your head around how much you consume as an individual throughout the year. And if you're going to become anywhere near close to self-sufficient, and T and I are not, because there's a lot of stuff that we eat that we don't grow. We're working on those things. We're trying to incorporate ways that we can keep those in our diet and our system without too much counterparty risk. We've talked about that before. Depending on somebody else to produce it and whatever they process, add to, destroy in that product that you might get. So the idea is to get the best. You want to know the best about the conditions that you're creating and know your volumes. How many onions do you eat in a year? How many meals? All right, so let's just do a little bit of math. You, one person sitting here watching this video today, let's see. There's 365 days in a year. What is that times 3 meals? Most of us eat 3 meals a day. So there's, 3 times 365, which is 9,080, 95, almost 1,200 meals. Is that right? You're pretty close to 1,200 meals in a year. Doesn't mean you're going to have exactly that many, but close to it. Some days you'll eat 2 meals. Some days you won't feel good. because he ate some processed stuff. You might not eat anything for a couple of days, but the point is this. You need to figure out how to produce as close to that as possible for each person in the household. That's the whole reason I did that video. Not to tell you the planting depth and spacing, because that may vary upon where you live and what you're planting and when you're planting. You know, there's people that are growing huge amounts of food in a basement. There's people out there that have very profitable businesses growing microgreens through grow lights in their basement. And they're doing one crop, and that crop is going to pay for others. And this is why I keep saying we all need to find our niche of what we can grow and create. Okay? Some of us are going to be better at other things. Then we come to a market. The one thing that you saw that they attempted to, or did a very good job of stopping us doing, they see where things are going. Those who wish to have control over things. So they want us, you know, apart. They don't want us going to places that we can talk and share these concepts and ideas. So this is valuable information, my friends. The most valuable information is you can understand the basics of how things work, and be teachable in learning what it is that you're going to have to do for your area, for your crops, for your production, for your volume, in your soil, in your climate. And that was some thunder, which means another storm's on the way. Probably time for me to wrap this one up. Anyway, folks, I hope this helps. Understanding the big picture of where your target is, what you really, really want to get to, and being willing to gobble up information with any time it comes around. You know, 40 plus years, at least, maybe 45 years of actual thinking about growing, which I've done pretty much every year of my life. Even when I'd moved from one little place to another. I would carry pots with me, I'd carry plants with me, and I would always have something growing somehow. Actively growing significant amounts of food, and since 2010, when I went, I need to do it all. I can't trust this game at all. I need it all to be under my control and my watch. When I got that waking and realization, you want to talk, the woke crowd ain't been woke yet. That's the realization that gets you into the learning mode. And even after that, for as much as I've learned, I still don't feel like I know anywhere near what I could know. It's just not enough life to do that. So you're not going to know it all. The best you can do is try. Try again over here, try this over there, and keep giving it a shot. There are no brown thumbs unless you got it up your backside. Everybody can have a green thumb if they're willing to try, because you will find something that succeeds if you want it bad enough. And knowing that there are going to be real major issues with our food system, the corporate mass production of food, there's going to be real major issues with that. Well, heck, we've already seen that, haven't we? So find your target. What is your target? To produce as much volume as possible. Carrots, potatoes, onions, good root crops make a huge part of it. But you have to have everything else to add to the nutritional content that you're taking in to keep you happy, healthy, and vibrant in these challenging times. So on that note, before this thing gets to really rocking and rolling again, and obviously I've done a good job of watering. I hope you liked the earlier video. Enough said. Y'all take care, and Doug, I hope that helps you.